All right, welcome back. So I have my list of Pokemon here that I pulled, and I found that this API, this URL gives us more detailed information, and I want my table to show more stuff than just the name and the URL. I don't even care about the URL. I want to show it, stuff like the height and the weight and the number that it appears and the sprite. That'd be kind of cool to actually show the image of it and all that stuff. So I want to get that from these individual ones here. Now, while I'm testing, I don't want to do it on all 151. I don't need to. If I can get it to work on one or even, two, let's just do 5 to be safe. If I can get it to run on 5, that's good enough. So I'm going to drop this limit down in my API call to 5. And now it's only going to return 5 Pokemon. And that's fine. That's all I need for testing. So the first thing I need to do is create a new type. And the reason is because this type only covers name and URL. So I'm going to create a new type called Pokemon Detail. Now, I could just create a new type and add all this stuff in, but another cool thing you can do is actually combine types. So I can do Pokemon and this new stuff. And what this is going to do is going to take the stuff from here and then add more stuff to it. And, it's not necessary, but it's kind of cool. I just wanted to demonstrate that's something you can do. There are some situations where it'll be more important. It's sort of like extending a type. If you ever use the extend keyword in any programming language, that's kind of what we're doing here. So we know we need all these. I'm just going to grab these out here. And I almost did all these correctly. I'm going to just rework some of these IMG. Hey, look at that. Not too bad. I need to put semicolons in here. I should put semicolons in here. And I'm going to reorder these so they're in alphabetical order as well. It's just sort of it's a convention that we try to do. We try to stick to conventions when possible. I definitely don't adhere to them as much as I should, but I try to, especially when I'm demonstrating. So I have this Pokemon detail type, and this is a more detailed version of our Pokemon type. And now over here, I'm going to import that in my fetch Pokemon function, import Pokemon detail. So now I have my new type that I can use for the details of the Pokemon. So what I'll do is export async function. And actually, this one's not going to be exported. This is just going to be an async function. And it's going to fetch a single Pokemon, and it's going to do that from the URL. So we have all these URLs here, and I'm going to just use this whatever, or we're going to pass this URL to this function, and then we're going to get the information from it. So we'll say URL string. So we're passing in this URL, which is going to be a string. That means I don't have to actually have a hard-coded URL because I'm passing it in. So we'll do the same stuff as before. Const response equals await fetch URL, and then const data equals await response.json. And I'm just for now going to console log the data just to make sure I'm actually getting the data back. Now I need another function that's going to run this one for all of the Pokemon that get passed to it. So I'm also going to import my Pokemon summary, or just my Pokemon type here. And we're going to say export async function, and we're going to say fetch all Pokemon details. So this is going to get the detailed version, and we want to pass in a list of Pokemon into this. So this is going to be Pokemon array, which is going to be an array of Pokemon. So Pokemon with this afterwards. So this is the type that it's expecting, and what I'll do for each of those, I'm going to create a new Pokemon array. So we'll say const Pokemon detail array, which is going to be of the type Pokemon detail array equals an empty array to start with. Now I need to iterate through whatever Pokemon get passed in. I want to iterate through, and I want to call this function each time. So the way we iterate through is with a for loop. For let I equal 0, I is less than Pokemon array.length, I plus plus. This is the syntax in JavaScript for iterating through. And essentially, it's taking this array and it's going to create an index 0 through whatever the array leads to. So right now, it's going to create, it's going to run it once for 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, because it's going to go less than the length, and the length is currently going to be 5 because that's how many Pokemon are coming in. So it's going to do it a total of 5 times, but with I equaling 0, I equals 0, I equals 1, I equals 2, I equals 3, I equals 4, and so, until it finishes. Later, it's going to do it 151 times. It's going to do 0 to 150, which is a total of 151. But for now, we're just going to do it a total of 5 times. Now, if I want to get the individual Pokemon from the array, I can do that with Pokemon array I, and this will grab the 0th one the first time, then it'll grab the first one the second time, and so on and so forth. This will run this for loop over and over for essentially each Pokemon in the array. Hopefully you have some experience with for loops, but if you don't, hopefully that helps a little bit. You definitely need some more practice with for loops to get the hang of it, though. They're a vital part of any programming that you do. So I'm going to grab this one out, and I want to pass the URL from it, which is at .url. I want to pass that into my fetch Pokemon. So I'm going to say Pokemon detail, const Pokemon detail equals fetch Pokemon, this one. Now, this is not returning anything right now, so I'm just calling the function for now because I want to see if it console logs the data. So I'm going to try calling this function from my page.tsx. Now, when do I want to call this function? Well, I want to call this function whenever Pokemon array updates. Now, if you remember our use effect, we can run a use effect. We can create as many as we want. We're going to create another use effect, but this one specifically is going to run whenever Pokemon array updates. So whenever Pokemon array updates, we're going to be running our function that we just created, which is fetch all Pokemon details. So we have to import that function from here. And we're just going to run it, fetch all Pokemon details. And we're going to run it off of Pokemon array, just like that. So fetch all Pokemon details off of Pokemon array. Now this should at least run the function. I need to save all so that we can make sure everything is saved. And let's check our console now. And it's giving us objects. Hey, look at that. So this is giving us each Pokemon in the list, each one at a time. Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, Charmander, Charmeleon. So it's giving us each of those Pokemon one at a time and giving us the detailed information. So we're running that fetch for that new one. And we can actually see, if we look at our network traffic and we refresh, we can see that it's running one. It's actually doing a double. It's kind of weird. React runs things double. It's not ideal, but it's essentially running and grabbing each of these one at a time from the Pokemon API website. So it's running that external call to an external website, which means that the burden of running that is on the client. Eventually, we probably want to make the burden on the server so that we're the ones handling it and we're not forcing our users to be sending requests to an external API. But for now, this is fine.